to another episode of Catch Up with Kestner. Thank you so much for tuning in. This podcast, we have a special guest, a good friend of mine, Avy. Really blessed that I get a chance to catch up with him today. Avy, for the people that don't know who you are, introduce yourself real quick. Tell them what you do, what you're about. Go ahead.
What's up, everybody? Basically, I'd like to call myself a visual storyteller. That's a very interesting way of describing it. But for the last 4 years, I've done product design. So because I live in Silicon Valley, like it's very easy to just kind of go into the tech world. And when you're there, they want to build apps, they want to build experiences, and then sometimes they just need someone to design it. But because I want to go into animation eventually and pivot, storytelling to me is a very design-focused concept. So regardless if I'm in tech or if I'm in animation, like I want to tell a good story, even if it's just you buying something off of Amazon. Like you want to feel good doing it. But yeah, that's me. I'm brown. I'm old. I'm married. I'm trying to have a kid. It's not going really well right now, but maybe by the time you watch it, it will go well. We'll see.
Dope. I liked how you talk about storytelling as kind of the main idea of what you do, right? Whether it's product design, like you were saying, or animation, it's all about telling a story, which is something we'll be talking a lot today because you're a well-known storyteller for talking a lot, so it's gonna be good today.
I don't know if it's a good thing. Might be boring.
No, never boring. So tell me a story. No, I'm just kidding. So tell me about a defining moment where you knew that your heart was for animation. So I know that you've always had a heart for sharing stories with others, really having a heart for diving into that intimate conversation with people. Tell me that moment where you knew that you wanted to do animation.
So like when I was a kid, I liked to read a lot. And then that kind of got me into wanting to be a novelist. Like I wanted to like write books and stuff. I don't know if it's just like me being an emotional person because my mom was hella emotional, but like I would like weep at like Titanic, right? I was like watch it, like, oh my gosh, like I'm 8 years old, like why am I crying about this?
Yep.
So I wanted to make other people cry with like romantic books and stuff. You know, not like that sexual romantic books, because that's like a whole different thing. So I went to Davis and I was an English major. And then I watched Wreck-It Ralph, which is like not very romantic, whatever. But the short film that was right before it was called Paperman. And like there was no words, right? No speaking. It was just like visual. And in like 6 minutes, like I was super hyped. I was like extremely emotional. And as a person who studied words, something that lacked it made me feel some type of way that I was like, dude, like, you know what? I'm gonna just give up my entire degree and do something else. And so that's where I was like, animation made me feel this way. Like, you know, me and my dad don't have like the dopest relationship because he's just an introverted Asian American. He's not Asian American. He is. He's from the Philippines. But like when I watched a Goofy movie, I'm just like, dude, like how come my dad can't treat me the way that he's treating his son? So I feel like animation got a hook on me right when I saw that short film. And it pivoted me completely from wanting to write words to wanting to draw pictures. Hell weird. Yeah.
You always been drawing?
I mean, I drew as a kid, like something that I want to be aware of when I'm a parent is that like, dude, like I would be watching Dragon Ball, I'd be watching like Pokemon and like just drawing it out. And my mom would see me all the time drawing.
Yeah.
And she would never be like, dude, this thing is like a thing. Like I should probably like invest some money and time into like really pushing my son into this kind of hobby. But she was like, nah, man, like just like do your homework, like stop wasting your time doing all this other stuff. And I was like, man, like if my parents were like really encouraged me with this passion, maybe I would have already been at Disney. But that's not their fault, right? Like my journey is my own journey, and like maybe it's like right that I did it, what I did. So yeah.
That's interesting because I can't relate to that at all. Like I've always been terrible at drawing. My dad was an engineer, so he'd always be sketching, always be drawing things, and he'd always do all these like awesome writing and just he was just really good at drawing. And I always tried to be an artist. Like when I was young, I actually wanted to be an artist, and I tried so hard. And the best I could do was that basic stick figure and that basic stick figure dog. And I thought I was Picasso, but after that, I really could not draw. And even till this day, my students are always, criticizing my drawings when I try to draw something. And I put a disclaimer out there every single time. I can't draw, so if you complain that you cannot draw, like that's fine. All I want is your effort. So it's funny that you started out like that, and you think of the what could have been if your mom was supportive or if your parents were supportive. And it is what it is. Like you said, it's not their fault. Your life is your own life, and your journey is your own journey. But I think about the things that if my parents pushed me in a different direction, like how much better I could have been at music, or how much better I could have been at drawing. Like, so that's an interesting way to think about is our lives could have been so much different had our parents raised us with that extra comfort in something that we were actually good at.
Yeah.
So
I will say I know you can draw, man. Like drawing is
okay,
or just art.
talent is what you're saying.
It like dude, like right, like Kevin Durant, like hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, right? Like
Yep.
when I think just trying to segue like into like my work as a product designer and UX UI, and like something people aren't aware of is that like visual stuff, everything you've understood in your brain, like 99% of it you've learned first by seeing it. Like almost everything you understood, and like what red means because you've seen it on a stop sign.
Right.
So every time you see the color red, you're just like, hey, like this is dangerous. This is something that I shouldn't be doing, right? Like there's a color wheel, right? Like I don't know if people understand the color wheel, but like the opposite color of blue is orange, right? On this wheel. And like, but if you look at nature, you see blue and orange all the time. Like in Hawaii, like there's like orange sand, blue sky, and then it transforms during the sunset where it's just like yellow and purple, and that's an opposite color. You see like red and green in the forest. Like nature teaches you concepts of drawing and art and design. And like it is up to me, it is up to animators, or it's up to people who do applications on your phone to make sure that those concepts that you've already understood translate directly into what you watch or what you interact with.
Like that.
So there's a reason why like close buttons are always red, right? Or when you want to buy something, it's always green. But then like in Japan, black is good and white is bad. But in America, white is good and black is bad. So depending on like who your audience is, you need to like understand what their visual understanding of what the world looks like. But bro, let me see your stick figures one day. Like I'm sure they're fire, and we can build upon that to make them look fantastic. So.
All right, I'll put myself out there. Like that's my call. Like I haven't put in the work to get better. Let's put it that way, So maybe I do. Everyone has that talent to do something. I tell that to my students too. But I guess that's on me. I haven't put in the work to expand my stick figures. So thank you for correcting.
It's dude, trust me. Like I'll say this. Like teachers like are not you, right? You must be a great teacher. But like teachers like shorthand us of like what an eye looks like. It looks like an almond with like a circle
Okay.
and a dot in it. Like that's not what an eye looks like. That is not what an eye looks like. You know, when like someone's like, oh, like a tree is like, you know, like a rectangle with like little clouds under, like that's not what trees look like. Like they taught us from an early age, like, hey, this is like how you draw things. But like, nah, you're just a crappy drawer teaching other people how to draw crappy. All right, like so we're like a little handicapped. Like we should have just like looked out in the world, be like, okay, I'm gonna draw that thing out there. That's why like when you go to art school, they just give you like a fruit and a pot and just like draw this.
Mm.
And then you start understanding like, oh, like this thing like curves like in space. Like an eye isn't flat. There's like roundness to it.
Yeah.
So like I have to draw it in a way that it isn't 2D. I don't know, stuff like that. I don't want to go into much detail.
I fall guilty to the traditional tree drawing, and when I'm teaching my students photosynthesis and I have to draw a tree, I fall guilty to that. So I'm sorry that I'm not doing the tree justice. I know I'm trying to get better. I will get better now that you pointed it out. So, but
yeah, in the world and climate of social justice, you need to give justice to the trees.
Yeah, that's a good point. No joke, or as the kids say, no cap. All right.
Damn.
So that's a good segue into kind of the skill sets that you were talking about, being able to look at, you know, nature in a different way, being able to take inspiration from different things every day. So being a product designer now, not saying that the two are compartmentalized, right? They have their interactions. What are you taking from being a product designer that's going to help you become not just an animator, but a unique animator? So in your own way.
Yeah, so the beauty of product design and animation is they all just kind of they're under the umbrella of just design in general, right? Like why does the Air Force One, why does the Air Jordan 1 look so good versus like, in my opinion, Vapor Maxes aren't as good as an Air Jordan. So in product design, right, like they teach you that I want to like look this way just because I don't know if you're on it. So when you read an app, you read it as a Z or an F. So you always start in the top left corner.
Okay.
And the reason why people do that is because you read books like that.
Right.
So since you were 5 to now, like you understand that you always look at the top right. That's why if you're on a MacBook, if you're on a PC, like close buttons, all that stuff is usually on the top left. Or like anything that you need to interact with, like open, save, whatever.
Yeah.
So you know that things are okay going from left to right. So as an animator, right, if you're drawing out a scene and let's just use like, I don't know, Aladdin, and he's walking to Jasmine, he's gonna walk from left to right because we understand that's how things go. But if it's Jafar walking to Jasmine, you want it to feel different.
Okay.
So where would he walk? He would walk from right to left because you're just like, whoa, why is he? That's not normal, right? So you start taking human understanding, like, you know, product design is all about that, right? Like,
right.
How do I make sure that like if I show an elder lady how to buy something on Target.com, like it's easy enough for them to be like, this makes sense. Like, this is where I buy stuff. So, okay, well, now I can use that understanding and be like, okay, how do I make sure that when I draw a scene out in animation, like that also makes sense? Like, oh yeah, like his house is that one, not these houses because that one looks a little different. Or like, I don't want to go too hard. I can do a whole seminar, like a whole hour on just the two main characters of Up, on like how the design of everything on their body is dope. Like Mr. Fredricksen, the old man.
Yeah.
Like, his glasses are square, his buckle is square, his head is square, his nose is square, everything in his body is square,
Mm.
right? But the kid, like his face is circle, his body is circle, like the badges on his thing is circle,
Right.
right? And then like, but the only thing on Mr. Fredricksen that's a circle is the grape soda badge
Dang.
because it connects him with the kid. It also connects him with his wife,
Yeah. Dang.
right? And you're just like, okay, like how do I use concepts of color and shape and this to make you feel like I understand what's going on, but I don't really know why, right? You understand why you can use Facebook very seamlessly or like Instagram. You can't explain it. That is my job. That is my job to kind of make sure that things are understood easily. And I think that using that for animation is super good. So anyway,
That's
long story short, that's it.
yeah, no, that's pretty dope. I mean, I knew that like product design was all about, you know, consumer oriented, right? Understanding that when you design a product, you want it to be easy to be understood. You want it to be easy to use
Yeah.
for your consumers so that, you know, understood that. But then you took it to a different level where, you know, if it's all about the consumer or it's all about making the product design easy and making those connections with humans, how do we turn those skills into animation where we want you to feel something when you watch it, right? So it's all about this idea that I'm getting now. It's all about feeling or being connected to something. And I feel like that's where you're at with product design and animation is, you know, you're taking what it means to feel something and have a certain feeling when you associate it with a product or when you associate it with a clip or a video, and then how do we make that into something unique? So that's pretty dope way to think about it. I actually didn't think about that one. Well, given I haven't watched Up in a while, but now that I think about it, I'm sure there's a lot of those hidden Easter eggs in a lot of movies, especially Disney, I bet. But I guess I gotta watch out for those more now. So
It's not supposed to be in your face. It's supposed to
yeah,
be like very subtle, right? Like on like just last thing about the Up thing. So the kid, right? Like he has the badge across his chest.
yeah,
He's missing one. That's the whole. He's like, oh, I need to get the elderly helpful badge or whatever. Where is it? Where on the sash is it missing? It's right here, right above the heart. Where
mm,
does Mr. Fredricksen put the grape soda thing? Right above his heart. So when he removes it and gives it to the kid, he's giving him love, right? And you're just like, they didn't even explain that. They never said anything about that. They just show it to you.
mm,
But somehow you walk away from the movie and being like, "Yup, I like, I mess with I like the vibe of this kid and this grandpa. Like, he's the new father figure in his life, and like, but if you never heard any words, I
yeah.
think you could be able to figure it out just by looking at them. Anyway, yeah,
So
bro.
I'm gonna pick your brain about that one more. So pick the craziest analogy or connection in any movie that you've watched. What is your most craziest connection where you watched a movie or you watched a video and you're like, wow, that blew my mind. What's that one moment for you?
Uh, okay, we're going into film storytelling now.
Okay, go for it.
So it's The Dark Knight, where there's an interrogation room where Batman needs to find out where Rachel is. If you remember that scene, like the Joker's in the room, and
Vaguely.
then
A little bit.
Batman's like, "Bro, like, where's Rachel?"
Okay.
And when I first watched it, right? Because like when you're trying to get into film or animation or whatever, or just design, like you want to start like pausing the film every 3 seconds to be like, okay, so what are you trying to tell me here? Like, why is half his face dark? Why is half his face light? Like
Right.
blah 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 blah. So um when I first watched that scene, I was just consuming it as an audience member. I'm like, oh dang, like, and then like the Joker's like, oh man, like I kidnapped Harvey and Rachel, and I'm only giving you 5 minutes to find one of them because one of them's gonna blow up, right?
Right.
And then he's like, oh shoot, and then like Batman gets all tripped out. So when you watch the film from a perspective of trying to understand it, right? Like the Joker is always on one side of the camera. He's always on the right side.
Okay.
And then Batman's always on the right side or the left side. So that when they switch back and forth between the two, you don't have to be confused on like where they are, right? Because like in terms of space, like you'd be like, wait, what? I thought the Joker was like over here, now he's over there. Like you don't want to do that to your audience.
Yeah, yeah.
So in the beginning of that scene, he's on this side, he's on that side. It doesn't matter where the camera is,
Yeah.
they're always on separate sides. And then the Joker is like, why are you trying to play the good guy, man? And Batman's like, to stop people like you. And then the Joker's like, but you are me. Right? And like Batman like doesn't get it at first. Because he's like chill, but the Joker's like this crazy guy. And the Joker's like, nah, man, like they're gonna hate you like they hate me. So eventually the camera starts putting them both on the left side, puts them both on the right side. They start flipping back and forth, making the audience be like, who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy?
Okay.
And then the more that they talk, Batman starts getting crazier because he's like, did you just kill my girl? Are you trying to murder my girlfriend? Right? He's starting to beat him up. And Joker starts being calm. He's like, bro, what are you talking about, man? Like, I thought you were the cop. Why are you flipping out right now? I'm supposed to be the bad guy. So from listening, you're just like, oh, dude, Batman and Joker are like the same person. But like Christopher Nolan needed to use the camera
Yeah.
to make you feel that. You're just like, I don't know who is anybody anymore. And by the time Batman's out, like, you're just like overwhelmed. Right. And that was like, dude, man, like movies are sick.
Yeah.
Like, but it requires you to really pay attention to like, okay, what is this director doing? Because like you could put a camera anywhere and just be watching it, and like most likely it's gonna be boring. They have to make decisions. Like in Last Thing, I swear.
No.
Like in E.T., I love E.T. Not a lot of new heads watch that movie because it's old, but like Stranger Things would not exist if it wasn't for E.T.
Good point. Good point.
Steven Spielberg puts the camera all the way down to the ground, the whole film. And like when you watch it, you're just like, how come I can't see the top of the refrigerator? Like how come I can't see the top of the door? It's because he wants you to watch it from a point of view of a child. So when you see police officers, when you see parents, you're looking up because he wants you to feel like you're a kid who's trying to protect this little alien.
Right.
Right? And you're just like, I didn't realize that until I really thought about it.
That's good.
So I don't know, man. Storytelling to me, like even like on an app, like I'll try to use that stuff. Like when there's like basketball stuff, like I've made basketball apps like for the Sacramento Kings and the Golden State Warriors. When
okay.
My background is the stadium or the background is the basketball court, I'll intentionally lower the picture as low as I can to make you feel like you're sitting down in the stadium looking down into the court. Like, right? Like you need to use things like that to really make you feel like I'm part of an experience.
Right.
Whatever. Yeah. That's what's up.
And I love how all of that goes hand in hand, right? So you said you were getting into filmmaking, or you were talking about filmmaking, and then this whole idea of product design and animation, and they all have their overlaps. And I think that's pretty cool how, you can go from one industry in filmmaking, but take everything that you've learned in product design or animation and make a really dope movie, for example. And it works vice versa, right? So if you're into filmmaking, you could be animation goes hand in hand, but go into product design. So I just love how everything is connected around the ideas of, like I said, the arts, shapes, colors, telling a story, making people feel something. And you kind of get to pick and choose is what what it sounds like. You can pick this one moment and really focus all the emphasis on your camera angle for this moment to make someone feel something, completely switch that and tell a whole different story 10 seconds later. And I just love how dynamic all this really is. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I'm learning as I go. This is why this is what I do, because I like this.
I'm trying to get you shook, man. It's a great film, and stuff is fun. Especially when you like really know what's going on, you're just like, I appreciate this.
And I've always had friends that always overanalyze films, and sometimes I would be thinking, why can't you just enjoy the movie, or why can't you just watch? But I get it. When you have that brain, or when you start picking out those visuals, or there's images, or there's allegories, you see movies on a whole different level. So I have a little bit more appreciation now for people that overanalyze films, because it's like once you can identify the beauty in something, you can't unfix yourself on it. You're fixated on it, and you have to like point it out and just appreciate it for how it is. So
yeah, it's like Steph Curry, right? Like,
yeah,
oh, like he shoots, like, okay, yeah, but like, do you know how hard it is to shoot a three?
that's true.
Right, from half court, and he can just shoot them like easy, like, or how like you need to take so much time to learn how to do a crossover. Like people who don't understand basketball, they watch Kyrie Irving like break people's ankles, and you're just like, okay, but you're like, no, man, I've been playing basketball my whole life, man. That's hard.
Yep.
Right. So, yeah, man.
Can't appreciate what you don't know, right? So,
definitely. Seriously, ignorance is not good.
Nope, for anything.
Yeah.
You kind of touched upon it toward the end when you're talking about filmmaking, but so how do you envision for yourself animation changing lives? Because I think about, when I think of changing lives, I think about, it's very natural for me to think about Disney and how much of an impact it's made on all of our lives, basically as, kids, when it came to movies and just telling these different narratives. Sometimes it changes for the better, sometimes it changes for, depending on the person and the perspective, right? But for you specifically, for all your journeys and all of your experiences, for yourself, how do you envision animation changing lives?
I think like you being a teacher, or we can both appreciate the idea that like people's character, people's understanding of what the world looks like, you really need to like form that as fast as possible when they're children.
Right.
Because like sometimes we hear really sad stories of how people end up being because of really unfortunate things that they've dealt with when they were kids. And animation, as much as I disagree that it's just for children, because like, there's good things for adults too, like it really can change a kid's mentality of like what the world should be. I think Beauty and the Beast, as an example, like they actually asked like little girls, like after watching the film, like, hey, so if let's just say you and your boyfriend got in a disagreement and he forced you in a room and was very abusive to you, would you stay with him? And they're like, yeah, I would totally stay with him. He's just gonna change. He'll change for me. And I was like, see, like Beauty and the Beast didn't really do a good job of like helping women feel like they have a voice here, right? Even Ariel had to remove her voice to go get the prince. Like she was not allowed to talk. Like that's not really something that I want to teach. But like Moana was like something different. Like I don't even need a romantic storyline. I just want to help my family. I think for me as a Filipino, like I've struggled finding anything that I could relate to. And growing up, I was only being able to relate to like non-Filipino people.
Right.
Or even just white people like Peter Pan or Aladdin. Like, I think it's time that there's a movie with a main character who's Filipino that can inspire Filipino boys and girls to be like, you know what? Like, I am proud of my culture. I am proud of who I am, and like growing up, I'm not ashamed of looking this way because that person's awesome on this movie from Disney, right? Like I think that's why animation is so powerful. It can create one entire generation to change their perspective on things. People watch Coco. That movie's about death.
Yeah.
Like you can't talk to little kids about dying. Like that's not okay for a lot of people. But this movie was able to do that. This Inside Out was able to talk about like depression.
Right.
For kid, like not even like adult depression, like a depression from a 12-year-old. So now kids can be like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad. I don't have to be happy all the time. Like an animation movie did that, not some random therapist. A movie that they watched on Disney Plus. So I think animation can make generations of children have a better life. And it's really up to people in the industry right now to make sure that they keep doing that versus like, I love the MCU, bro. I love all things Iron Man, but like if that's all they watch, like I don't know, man.
That's true.
It's like it's just like violence with like a little bit of like, this is why you're supposed to be a good person. But anyway,
I think about something that really sticks out from what you said of, changing the perspective of a generation, right? Because for a lot of us in their mid-20s, right, growing up in 30s and older, we grew up with these very famous Disney movies as an icon, right? And they all told their own narrative or their own story, but through the eyes of the people that made it, right? And in a generation where we're starting to realize there's more different important things, racism, depression, all these different issues that need to be addressed, and we start to see a shift in the movies that are coming out now, and hopefully in time it changes the minds of the generations of these kids so that when they are their mid-20s, when they are in their mid-30s, right, they're growing up in a different world. So I like how we're seeing a positive shift in small increments. There's still a lot of change, but it gets you thinking more about, well, what were kind of the movies that we watched that affected how we interacted, of how we viewed love, of how we viewed family, and all these different things. And it starts to make you wonder if the value behind those movies actually, because we grow up making certain decisions because of those movies. We grow up thinking a certain way about what it means to have a healthy relationship, like you were saying, when it comes to Beauty and the Beast. And it just makes you wonder if the intentions behind movies like that, and it makes you a little bit more critical of what you put into your mind now. Of what movies do you watch now? What kind of movies do you show your kids? What kind of movies do you show your kids, right? And these different things, because they all play, like you said, everything plays into how they develop or how they mature as growing adults, and that's really important. But I like also how you said that it's not just for kids, it's not just for children, right? We focus a lot on growing the next generation of students, of kids, and how they are supposed to act and how they're supposed to play a role in society. But what about adults too, right? That already have this trained, developed, mature thinking. How do we make movies for that? And how do we make, animation that really adults can analyze and, get a lot of the proper, or feed in the right information and try to make a difference? Are there any movies that stick out for you that do a good job as hitting a target audience for adults?
I mean, the thing is the industry and like the academy, right, who give the awards, they don't really respect animation, right? The people who do the award show, who choose the winner for like best animation, they literally just ask their children like, what's your favorite movie? Like that's stupid. A lot of animation for adults is like shows, like satire, like The Family Guy or The Simpsons or whatever. But I would argue that the majority of animation for adults are in video games.
Okay.
Like, so you play Uncharted, you play like The Last of Us 2, you play like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like those, they're like mature audience video games.
Right.
So the only people who are supposed to look at it are adults. But I would argue, let's use Finding Nemo.
Okay.
Like, Pixar isn't just making children films, they're making family films.
Right.
So when you watch Finding Nemo and you're a son, you watch it from Nemo's perspective. I guarantee you, if you watched it with your dad, he would watch it from Marlin's perspective. He would be like,
right,
like, oh, dude, like that dad is super overprotective. Like, am I overprotective? Do I not let my son do stuff? And then at the end of the movie, Marlin's like, you know what? Like, you're your own person. I just need to I need to trust you while you grow up. I bet you dads would be like hella emotional. I'm like, you know what? That shook me too.
yeah,
I need to let my son drive by himself. I need to let my son have a girlfriend and not worry about whether or not he's going to treat her badly when he's on his date. Stuff like that. I think regardless what your age group is, like watching something like The Incredibles, you'll find someone to cling to, even if you're 50. Maybe you'll be Edna Mode. You're like, you know what? I want to help these superheroes. Maybe I'm Mr. Incredible. Like, hey, sometimes I don't feel strong enough to handle my mortgage, my taxes, being able to make sure that like I have food on the table. Like,
right.
yeah, people can get hit anywhere. So,
and that's the point of films, right? Is to attract or hit an audience in all different age areas and all different backgrounds, right? That's a lot of films are trying to do that to get a wider pool, a wider audience of people to interact with that film. So I like that point of animation. It's to hit different people and to hit different families in different ways, and hopefully in a positive way. I mean, different films are arguable, right? But that's the goal of animation, is to find different people, hit a target audience, and make each of them feel a different way according to your film. That way they connect and shape, like you said, shape the perspective and shape the mindset. So that's interesting to think about.
yeah. I mean, even the Avengers is animated. Thanos ain't no real person.
Yeah.
That's a computer.
Yeah.
So without animation, you would not have the biggest gross selling film of all time. Right. So anyway, yeah, man, watch movies. Watch Asian movies.
Watch Asian movies.
I'm waiting for that.
There's not too many. There's not too many.
No, I would argue even watch the bad ones.
Ah, okay. Watch that. That's true.
Because we need to tell Hollywood, like, there's an audience who are watching these. I almost went to watch Moana 3 times in the theater. I watched Crazy Rich Asians 3 times in theater. I was just like, I'm paying Hollywood money so you can know that if you make a movie like this, people will go, right? Yep. So Last Christmas with Henry Golding, that movie was trash. Trash. And I had A-list, so I was just like, I'm buying a ticket for this crappy movie. Because I'm just happy that they have Asian people on it. So whenever Mulan comes out in theater, I don't even know if it's good, if it's racist, if it's whatever, like I'll be there multiple times.
Interesting.
Yeah, man.
So you briefly talked about it in parts throughout, and I know it's a really cliche question to ask, but I want to hear it from your perspective as an artist. But where do you find your inspiration for your artwork? Because I love keeping up with your artwork online. I love seeing the things that you put out, and I know it's like a very cliche way of answering that is just to see the world around you. But for you, Avy, what's your inspiration?
I mean, I think my inspiration in general for design is that a lot of us live boring lives, right? Like, because you just do the same stuff. You got to put the trash outside. Yeah. But like, well, how do you make that interesting? How do you make that exciting? So like, somehow we found a way to make shopping online a little bit more interesting. Like, okay, so as a product designer, I could do the same thing. How do I make watching the NBA on your phone more interesting, right? Like maybe you can play mini games in between during the timeouts. And like that, like, oh, dope. But for animation, it's just like what inspires me is that my mom passed away like 7 years ago, and like anytime anyone loses a family member, that like stuff changes you.
Of course.
So if you just go on my Instagram feed or whatever, you'll notice that like a lot of it is just like images of my mom or concepts of my mom. My current storyboard that I'm working on is called Tiger Mom because the mom dies from getting shot by a conquistador in the Philippines, and the boy has to like find a way to like fight for his mom, and that's me. So I think that is my biggest inspiration. Like, one, trying to make people know who my mom is, because that's up to me now, because my mom can't do it anymore. And then two is like, death is really hard to deal with, and like overcoming stuff like that. And I think animation has a really great way of doing it in a way that it's not too uncomfortable. And also like living with my wife, like stuff is hella funny, man. Like that's why comics in the newspaper are hilarious. They talk about normal things.
Yeah.
And you laugh because you're like, oh yeah, like I deal with that too. Right? Like someone frugal aesthetic, sorry, I like rant a lot. Kestner knows this. I like kind of change topics, but he was talking about how like he sees these off-white shoes that are like Volt green, and he like hates how they look because they're so ugly. But it's like he describes it as like, you ever like get bit by a bug and you scratch it and it feels good, but it also feels painful and you don't know why you keep scratching it. That's how I feel when I look at these ugly ass shoes. And like you connect with it because you're just like, yeah, because I scratch like that too. So if I can draw an animation, you're just like, I connect with that because I used to do that way too. Like, but make it funny. I think it's dope. So sorry, that's long-winded. I don't even know if that made sense.
No, it all brings back to, like you said, well, the first one is your mom, right? And telling the story and being able to speak for the people that don't have a voice anymore is a huge thing. So that's a lot of where your inspiration comes, or teaching people to show that, to honor those that can't really speak for themselves, or have a difficult time speaking for themselves. So that's where your inspiration comes from, and shifting into that narrative. And I love that. And another one's just like what you're interested in, what your passions are, or whatever you find interest in. And like when you said it, when it comes to shoes, or when it comes to basketball, and all these different things, you want to be able to use who you are and what you're interested in order to put into your artwork or into your inspiration. And I think that's a still solid answer. And it's a good thing to keep you going too, because when you feed your artwork with things that you like, it's not even work anymore. And I bet you feel like that too sometimes. It's not even work, it's just a passion. And that's the beauty of, I think, of what it means to be an artist. You're literally doing what you love, right? You get to put out what you love. So
yeah, and someone out there loves it.
Yeah.
It might not be people that you interact with, but someone is going to connect with it the exact way you connected with it. I think that's like very exciting.
Nice. Avy, thank you for sharing everything that you had to share today. Humbling myself, I've learned a lot today. I know nothing about animation. I know nothing about filmmaking, product. I'm only a consumer, right? I'm not a designer or anything, but this is why I appreciate talks like this, is where I hear the expertise of my friends, and I'm learning along with the people who's watching. It's a journey, so thank you for taking me on a journey. I appreciate you. I appreciate the way that you see storytelling, and the way that you feel for storytelling, right? And wanting to make a story for yourself. So I appreciate the motive there, and always for you, always looking out for your artwork. There are more people that need to be like you, that have a heart for connecting with other people, and wanting to connect that through artwork, whether that's animation or product design. Always putting the people first, I think, is a huge thing about your job, right? It's not so much, well, what do you like? It's what is everyone else going to like? And that takes a different type of heart. That takes a a good place in your heart of, you know, being thoughtful of other people, and I love that part of what you do. So keep doing that. So any final words for the pod?
Don't be afraid of really finding your passion. I think it's never too late. Like I decided to want to go into animation really late in the game, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So whatever you love, you need to do it. Like, don't do yourself a disservice and do something safe. That's it.
Good. That's
Love
good.
Jesus.
Love Jesus. All right.
Cool.
Thank you, Avy, for taking the time. Hopefully everyone got something out of that. Until the next time, Avy. Peace.
All right, man.